teacher for quite some time now. So probably on and off for about four years. On and off for that. Well, after travelling for a while, I decided that I wanted to find a sort of a new career, as it were, and I answered an advert in a newspaper and advertising the Callan Method. So I came for the week-long training, and I thought it was an excellent method of teaching. And the first 6 months of teaching the Callan Method is actually quite difficult. It's really challenging because you're having to, you know, learn new skills. You're having to. It's a little bit different to the way that you teach traditionally, because you're constantly in front of a class, constantly talking for 50 minutes, and you have to be actually quite dynamic. It isn't your body, but it's his body. It's his body. Good. What part of the body is this? What part of the body is this? That part? That? Not that? That? Not that? That? Part of the body, not of the body is the break from traditional methods. Yes, I always say this to my teacher. I wish that we'd had the Callan Method when I was at school studying French or German, because it would have allowed me to be able to, you know, converse in the language much quicker. Unfortunately, we just didn't have that. The way that I learned a language was just not this, and I wish that it was this method. The way that it's different from traditional methods is that there's no reading or writing, yeah? And what you do is you practice the language through forming sounds in the new language, yes? And also practicing grammatical structure. So what you're doing all the time is you're doing lots of things. You're listening to a teacher speak in their native language really quickly, yes? So your listening and your speaking skills become better and better every time you hear it. So it's a lot of listening. It's a lot of imitation, so you're imitating sounds that the teacher makes. That makes it really exciting, very challenging for the student as well. And it also, through repetition, you're beginning to start to understand the grammatical structure and how a sentence is formed. So I think that's the reason that it's so effective. How many people are there in London? There are 7 million people in this London. Not in this London? In London. In London. Good. Okay. Good. Right. What am I doing? What am I doing? You're not going. Going to the door. Good. What am I doing? What am I doing? You're going. Coming. Coming from the door. Good. Okay. I think what they like is practice in pronunciation. Yes. They like the repetition. Yes. They like the strictness in which we emphasise. Pronunciation is really important as well, and the speed in which they learn. They're actually quite amazed at how quickly they learn. A few students I know that I've taught and have never, well, understand English, but have never really spoken or practiced it, are often amazed that after a week they're able to put together sentences, you know, that in other methods would have maybe taken them a month to do, yes, and a month to understand. Seven words in this sentence. Good. Which is the first word in this sentence? Which is the first word in this sentence? Verbs. Verbs is the first word in this, not in this, in this sentence. Good. Which is the second word in this sentence? Which is the second word in this sentence? R is the second. Also, the method is really sort of forgiving as well, in that if you make a mistake, it's okay. In fact, we prefer you to make a mistake because then you learn from your mistakes and then you improve as well. At the beginning of my sort of like career in teaching Callan, I was very sort of reluctant to try and correct students because it's not really sort of very polite, you know, to directly correct them. But I find that it's something they actually quite enjoy. So it's a kind of you know, an enjoyable thing for them to be corrected time and time again because they know that it's good for them. That's the thing that they probably enjoy very much, is that actually practicing the language. So it's really strange because even if a student doesn't fully understand the structure of a sentence, a grammatical structure of a sentence, what they enjoy is they're actually speaking and forming the sounds in the language. Yeah. They also enjoy the atmosphere that the method creates in the classroom. It creates a sort of like very sort of upbeat and positive atmosphere. You know, the teacher's always speaking very animated and expects the students to be awake and alive and animated as well. So I think that energy is something that they enjoy. If you're a wallflower and you're very shy and you don't like to be direct, then maybe perhaps it's not. You won't be as effective as other teachers who are very. It is rather like a performance, I'm afraid. Yes, going into a class, like any situation where you're involved with the public. So the first 20 minutes is you're practicing your revision, yes, for everything that you did the last lesson. And then you've got a 5 or 10 minute period where you do pronunciations through reading and dictation, and then the final period where you do new work, the final 20-minute period. But I suppose that if you're a teacher that is used to a more traditional, sort of quieter method, then maybe the Callan Method wouldn't work so much for you. But if a student has very little knowledge of English and starts from book 1, stage 1, with no sort of like bad habits accumulated from other methods, they will progress at an incredible rate. Because in the lesson, you're not the only student that's being corrected. Everybody gets corrected and everybody speaks all the time, so you don't have that sort of fear factor involved. 7, is that right? 2 plus 2 equals 7, is that right? No, it isn't. It isn't. Right, but it's wrong. Okay, the wall's high, is that wrong? The wall's high, is that wrong? No, it isn't. It isn't. Wrong, but it's right. It's right. Good. Okay, good. Is it right because that's the most exciting part about teaching students, international students from different kinds of countries? I think that's what part makes my job really actually very interesting, is learning to communicate with people from different cultures and seeing life from their sort of like point of view. But in terms of learning a language, I think there isn't one culture that learns quicker than another culture. Sometimes I've met sort of like people that have been retired and have learned very quickly, just through experience, and then elderly people who don't learn very quickly. So you can't really sort of generalise, because each student is individual. For me, it's really important for the group to work together, and for each student to support each other. So I'd always like to be able to bring an atmosphere of sort of like a friendliness and an atmosphere where people aren't afraid of making mistakes and feel supported, yes. And I think that as a teacher, it's very important to build a class in that way. So we sometimes play games in the last 5 minutes of our lesson, So we play word games, yes, to get them to think quicker in English, and we get them to learn rhythm as well, because every language has a rhythm, yes. So and English has its own rhythm as well. So we play games in which we play with the rhythm of the language, and we play word games, so get you to start thinking quickly in English. And we play sort of like traditional English games as well. So we introduce a bit of the sort of like English culture into the lesson as well. I mean, for example, I have a Brazilian student who always mixes her pronunciations with R's and H's. Yes. So a hat, I always have to correct her and say no, not rat, but hat. But there was one lesson when she instead of saying I have a hat on my head, she said I have a rat on my head, and that made everybody laugh a lot. But it's those little differences that makes the class really sort of vibrant, really. Yeah. I think one of my favourite students was sort of like an elderly woman actually, who'd never learned English, who lived in the country for maybe more than 10 years, but was very shy in the lesson. But you could see, like, from book 1, page 1, I had her, but you could see that her confidence was growing and growing and growing every day, even to the point where at the beginning she was like, sort of like quite shy, would sit at the back of the class, in the corner, big coat on, yes? But as the months progressed, she was like sitting right up at the front with everyone else. If you're thinking about teaching Callan, or thinking about a career in English teaching, I think you shouldn't hesitate, you should just do it. It's very good because it gives you confidence, gives you a chance to meet people from different cultures, and especially think about the Callan Method, because it means that you can travel anywhere in the world and have a place to work anywhere in the world, and that's it.